So the other day, I finally got around to seeing this year's Weapons. And wow, what a crazy movie. Here's what I thought about it. So before I start this review, I want to know I finally got a new mic, so the audio might actually sound good this time, unlike my last video. But anyways, I've been wanting to see Weapons for a while now, and with it dropping on HBO Max, I finally got the chance to see it, because I was a little busy when it came out in theaters. But I was intrigued to see this movie simply because of the premise. A group of students in one specific class who go missing on the exact same night, at the exact same time, except for one. And right away it creates this mystery and intrigue, and I have to say I was intrigued before I even hit play on this movie. And I think it delivered on that premise for the most part. Now, being a horror movie, the scares obviously have to be effective, and they certainly are here. There's some really unsettling and creepy imagery, and there's just this sense of dread, tension, and thrills throughout the entire runtime that really had me on the edge of my seat. And like I said, it was unpredictable, and the creepy imagery actually did unsettle me a little bit, despite how desensitized I've become to horror movies. The jump scares were also very effective, and a few of them actually got me, which is incredibly rare. The whole film also has this unsettling tone to it, because like I said, it's very unpredictable, and a lot of things happen out of completely nowhere. And it's not like they're just random. I mean, they kind of are, but like, they do play into the story. It's just, they happen out of nowhere and they create true shock value. With how crazy and wacky it is, it honestly has a sense of dark humor to it that I wasn't expecting. And I think Zach Cregger really balanced that well with the horror. And one of my least favorite things with horror and thriller movies, especially nowadays, and a lot of modern Marvel movies too, is that a lot of comedic relief is used inappropriately and really just kind of ruins the moment. But here I think it elevated the wackiness and the thrills and tension of the movie in a way that I haven't really seen before. And it just made for a more effective and thrilling movie. Now, I guess I kind of have seen this before. It kind of reminded me of Get Out. So if you haven't seen the movie, just kind of go in thinking that it has that balance of dark humor and horror, sort of the same way that Get Out does. Now, just to be clear, this is far from a dark horror comedy, I guess you could say. It's nowhere near that. I just thought I would mention this aspect of the movie that I thought was really effective. The acting in this movie is also really exceptional. Now, if I talked about everyone, I'd be here for a really long time, but I'll just talk about the main three standouts because they were the ones that really stood out to me the most. The first one is Julia Gardner. She really sells this teacher who's just been really affected by the community and obviously what's going on, and she just sells this teacher who's gone kind of mentally whack because of everything that's going on and how people are treating her. But the standout to me was Josh Brolin. He really sells this parent who's been psychologically affected by his child gone missing. Now, obviously I have no idea what it's like to lose a child, but I really believed his performance here. He really shows this dedicated parent who is dedicated to finding his child and is willing to do anything to find him. Another standout to me was the kid who played Alex. A lot of child performances to me just don't... They're good child performances and then they're good performances overall, and I honestly think that he did just have a great performance overall. And he really sells this unsettled kid who's just has too much of society bearing on him, and when you start to learn more about what's really going on with him, it really starts to unravel and make things more clear in a very, very satisfying way. It really is one of the best child performances that I've seen in quite a while. Now, for my only mixed aspect of the film, it's definitely minor, like a mixed usually is, but it has to do with the logic. Some of the characters make really weird decisions that don't really feel natural like a human being would make. Now, obviously I understand how this would psychologically affect them with everything going on, but especially Julia Gardner's character, they do things that are they stretch my believability quite a bit. They just go slightly too far. It's not a huge thing, and honestly didn't affect my viewing experience at all, really, but it's just something to note. Now, there definitely were a few things that held this movie back from being truly great for me, and the first one has to do with the pacing. It's the method of storytelling that Zach Cregger uses it messes with the pacing, and it's something that hasn't really worked for me in the past when it's been used. It doesn't really make the movie drag, it just sort of resets stuff, and it quickly gets you back into the movie, so it's not a huge deal, but it's definitely something that affected the pacing and makes it a little bit less rewatchable than it otherwise would be. It's really hard to talk about because, as far as I know, the trailers and marketing didn't really advertise this at all. The other disappointment to me is the character development, which really wasn't an issue until the third act. One of the things I really loved about the earlier stages of the movie was the relationship between Julia Garner's character and I don't know how to pronounce his name, so it's the guy that plays Han Solo in the prequel movie. But I really love the relationship, and it kind of ignores it as the movie goes along. And it goes for some emotionally impactful moments towards the end that don't really work because of the fact that it did ignore it kind of the further we got along in the movie. So it's not a criticism in the traditional sense, but more of a missed opportunity, I would say. Now, the biggest negative I would say that really disappointed me the most and kept this from being a truly great horror movie were some of the revelations that we got in the third act. They just felt way too simplistic for what the movie was going for beforehand and kind of took me out of it a little bit. They just weren't satisfying enough, to put it simply. I was really hooked up until this point, but like I said, it just kind of took me out of it and made me feeling disappointed overall at the end of the day. So even though the third act disappointed me, I will say that Weapons was a really, really entertaining movie overall. It's one of the movies that's going to stick with me at the end of the year. It's not one of my favorite movies, but it's one of the ones I'll remember the most, and I'll remember specific scenes and just iconic moments from the movie, unlike even movies that I would rate higher than this. So overall, I think this is a movie that's worth watching. Now, this is my 5th review on my channel, and it's definitely another movie that's worth the R rating. I guess I just like R-rated movies, but the intense stuff, like I said, the shocking moments really add intensity and make this an edge of your seat kind of movie. The language is pretty heavy. There are a lot of F-bombs. Sex and nudity. There's one scene where people do it, but it's very brief and not explicit. It doesn't show anything, but you know what's happening. And for violence and gore, it gets really gory, especially towards the third act. Extremely gory. I would even rate this movie, the violence and gore, a lot lower. Maybe 1 or 2 scores or number whatever lower than it would be, but the violence and gore that they showed at the very end of the movie really makes it higher and just very, very heavily R-rated. Now, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll have a review for some other movies at the end title of this video, and I plan to watch Predator Badlands and plan to make a review for it, so you can expect that by at least this weekend, and I'm looking forward to that movie. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any critiques of my analysis of the movies or anything like that, please let me know. I'm just trying to improve and get better. So yeah, thank you. See you in the next video.